en un lugar de La Mancha, de cuyo nombre no quiero acordarme.
It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good
Aujourd'hui,
fortune
maman est
must
morte. Ou peut-être hier, je ne sais pas.
Welcome to the Spoken World podcast. I'm Christopher Keneally. Which public institution has more branches than McDonald's restaurants or Starbucks coffee shops? The local library. Libraries also outnumber bookstores by 2 to 1. As Johanna Briton with Overdrive told Arantza Larrauri of Marque in a Parix Audio Day presentation, libraries are critical to growth for publishers because they expand awareness and opportunities for discovery of books and audiobooks. And in the U.S., this is true not only for English language content, but also for audiobooks in many foreign languages. Throughout the spring, the Spoken World is featuring recordings of presentations from the 2025 Parix Audio Day Conference in Madrid, as well as exclusive recordings from the London Book Fair and the U.S. Book Show in New York. Thanks for listening, and please subscribe to the Spoken World podcast so you won't miss a single edition of the program.
As a kid, I never read for fun. I'm dyslexic, and it took too long. What about audiobooks, I say? Does that count, he asks. Of course it counts, I say. His eyes narrow. Are you sure? I'm a librarian, I say. If anyone gets to decide whether it counts or not, it's me. So, libraries are an amazing place to discover all types of books, including audiobooks. In fact, I'm going to say that librarians are the most trusted influencers and have always been. Libraries are a huge discovery and indirectly a sales channel. There are more public libraries in the US than there are branches of McDonald's, branches of Starbucks, and there are 2 times more libraries than there are bookshops. Libraries make an excellent complement to booksellers because they expand the areas where potential readers can discover books and audiobooks. And numerous studies have shown that library readers are buyers too. So how do librarians enable the discovery of audiobooks? First of all, they make selections and purchases and curate digital collections. They merchandise and promote shelves on hundreds of displays. This can be in the bookshop, in the library, or digitally. Over there on the right-hand side, you'll see that there is a curated list of the Booker Prize winners there that's on one of the digital libraries. They curate displays, they host reading clubs, and down here I gave an example of the National Library Board of Singapore creating a library, a book club around before the coffee gets cold. And they facilitate author visits, sometimes online as well. They promote community reading and they organize campaigns. They're all about book and the spoken word and the written and reading. So these are places where your titles will get millions of impressions, whether physically in the library or digitally on the library websites and on the reading apps. So they enable discovery. People discover books in the library. So let's have a look at how those how those books are being used. Sorry, I am dyslexic. Audiobook circulation. So according to the Public Library Audiobook Survey that came out very recently, on data collected in 2024. This was based on a questionnaire that was sent to 486 public libraries. The majority of libraries surveyed said that audiobooks account for less than 20% of the total adult and children's YA circulations. Over 46% of the surveyed libraries recorded a significant increase in the use by adults. The majority noticed a decrease in children's circulations, but they did see in the larger libraries the trend continuing to increase with children. And how does that compare with the data that we see at Overdrive? Well, at Overdrive, we've seen pretty constantly across the digital libraries that we have in over 100 countries in the world, and with at least 90,000 libraries connected to us, with the majority of that market being in the US, we've seen an audiobook checkout increasing in both school libraries and in public libraries year on year. In schools, it's around, on average, 11–12%, the increase year on year. And in public libraries, it gets closer to 20% average year-on-year increase in circulations. So, who are the users? And again, I'm going to base some of the answer of this on the Audiobook Library Survey, because they've classified in the importance of who do they think their audiobook collection serves best. According to the Public Library Audiobook Survey, almost all libraries surveyed reported that their audiobook collection is ideally suited to support commuters and travelers, and I'd add people exercising and people doing house chores as well in that category, seniors, multitaskers, people with impaired vision, reluctant readers, struggling readers, emerging readers, auditory learners, people with physical disabilities, English language learners, people with other types of disabilities, and listeners of languages other than English. And here I've pulled that information out a little bit, and I go more into detail in this last point, because I think for many of you here today, that's interesting. There is a market in the US for languages other than English. And so for foreign language audiobooks, for over half of the libraries surveyed, 56% said that they have titles in a language other than English. 1 to 5% of their collection would be in these languages. And for children and YA audiobooks, 54% of the libraries surveyed had titles in another language. It's the libraries serving the larger population, so the big city libraries, that actually have bigger collections and invest more in foreign languages. And you can understand, because usually there's more of a mix in the community. And typically with their adult collection, those libraries would be spending, their collection represents 1 to 5% of their collection for adult titles, and 6 to 10% for children's titles. So what are the budgets in public libraries for audiobooks? Again, according to the same survey, close to half of the libraries have an audiobook budget of 1 to 10% of the total material spend. Libraries serving larger populations spend more, and they may be spending 21 to 30% of their budget on audiobooks for adults, and 11 to 20% on children's and YA. At Overdrive, we've actually verified this, and we can actually see the sales continue to increase in double digits year on year. And that's very much similar to what other speakers have reported today. So the average being somewhere around 13 to 14% year on year, but strong growth in double digits. So they have the budget, and the last part is what options do librarians have to sell? So you as publishers, if you're going to sell your books to public libraries for those books to be discovered in as many places that are available, how are those books going to be sold? There are various access models that are offered to libraries by publishers, and there are some that are more favored and some that are less favored by librarians because they do not have infinite budgets. So when asked which access models were preferred, the answers that came back actually showed that what they actually enjoy is the choice of different models. And depending on whether the book is front list or back list, or whether it's in a foreign language or a popular title or less popular, librarians are going to make different purchasing choices. Their favorite model, they claim to be the one copy, one user model, and I'll define all these models a little bit better in a second. The second favorite is the simultaneous use model. Their least favorite model is the cost per circ model. And in the middle there, you'll notice that you'll have metered access, and I know a lot of you have metered access models for libraries. But it's among the least favorite models. So what are all these models? The one copy, one user, the reason why it's the favorite from the libraries is because it operates a little bit like purchasing something that they would put on a shelf. They purchase it once, they can lend it to one user at a time, and it never expires from their collection for as long as they have a digital library. The metered access functions in a very similar way to the one copy, one user, except that the copy does expire, so it can be lent to one person at a time, but there is an end date to this book. It's either going to be an end date in time, 1 or 2 years license or more, or a number of circulations, so 26, 52 loans, or a combination of both. So that copy does not remain in the collection, and it's amongst the least favorite because the publisher doesn't, the librarian doesn't know if they buy a license that expires in 2 years' time, they don't know what return on investment they'll have for that copy. So they prefer to buy something else. Cost per circulation is a book that's present on the digital collection of the library that only gets paid once someone borrows. So every loan creates a smaller payment, but the payment is when someone actually reads that book. And then there are a variety of simultaneous use models, and those could be a license for a book with a specific number of circulations included that can be used concurrently. At Overdrive, we call that Overdrive Max. It's 100 circulations on one license. And there are subscription packages around certain themes. So there could be a romance package, for example, with a subscription to a certain number of titles which get paid upfront for the whole year, and that can be used concurrently. And then in schools, there are specific situations where licenses can be used for children in classrooms, and those we would call classroom sets. If you have a set of 40 students studying the same book, there would be a license for 40 students to be able to use that. So the key message here to retain from here is that libraries don't have infinite resources. They appreciate fair and equitable terms, and they do appreciate the choice of access models. And they're an incredible place for audiobooks to be discovered by readers because they have such a large footprint across the physical space, but also the digital space. And with that, thank you, and I'll answer some questions.
Okay, thank you, Johanna. I
Thank
have some questions. Just to continue with the topic you have raised about the business models, the license models, before to start with this connection.
Yeah.
This is one very important topic for the publishers and for the librarians, no? The different business models, how can they buy these licenses? And it has been quite a debate in a lot of places and countries, and still is. So just curious to know if in the United States, has there ever been a forum, a place, where the libraries represented by the representatives, the corresponding representatives, and the publishers have had room for experiencing together and discuss what business model can be convenient, depending on a lot of things, the book cycle, the book category, etc. Or if this has not happened yet, because sometimes here in our country, for instance, we think, both sides think that it will be important to have this conversation. How relevant do you think this conversation would be to go to make libraries even more important? They are important now, but even more important for publishers.
There is space for dialogue. That usually typically goes through associations. So it could be the Publishers Association, it could be the Librarians Association, it could be those entities coming together and inviting each other for dialogue. I think that at least I live in the United Kingdom. We've done over the past 13, 14 years, I think we've done 3 different pilots at different times on e-lending models with the participation of publishers and libraries, and analyze the results. So there always is a possibility for dialogue. I think it's a match made in heaven when librarians and publishers speak, because there are more opportunities out there than we realize. And those opportunities also encourage people to engage more with books from a very young age, because typically children frequent libraries. And yes, experimenting with access models and understanding that there isn't a perfect model. There will be a different model for a different use in as many libraries as there are across the world. There will be a better model for Spanish books in American libraries than perhaps is used in Spain, and so on and so forth.
Very interesting, because the fact of experiencing together, you have also the opportunity to be transparent and show information, exchange information between the parts,
Yep.
which is key. No? Apart from that, I wanted to ask you, we have seen that some libraries have collections of other languages of books. You mentioned, I think, was 5% of the
1 to 5%.
1 to 5.
Yeah.
This is interesting. It's still low to what it can become. So, based on your experience, what do you think that publishers, especially in Spain, because as we saw, Spain and Latin America, because we saw that Spanish is a major language spoken in the United States at home, which will be your recommendation to approach this market with the audiobook collections of these publishers?
Well, definitely consider it. Definitely sign up for it, because just in the last 2 years, the spend on languages other than English doubled. So foreign languages the spend in libraries was doubled. The usage is growing. Just in the last 2 years, it's been 1.5x. And the most popular languages are Spanish, German, French, Chinese, Arabic, Hebrew, and Portuguese, in that order, in terms of acquisitions and usage. It changes a little bit. German goes down a little bit in terms of usage, and French comes up.
Okay. I have plenty of questions, but the music tells us that we have to leave the scenario. Thank you, Johanna, for your presentation. Thank you.
That's all for now. Our producer is Jeremy Brisky of Burst Marketing, and Rob Simon is our executive producer. The Spoken World covers the latest news in the global audiobook market and features exclusive interviews with audio industry leaders, analysts, and innovators. Learn more at spokenworld.media and subscribe on all major podcast and streaming platforms. I'm Christopher Keneally. Join me again soon on The Spoken World.